Hey babes, I'm Miss Mila Rose and welcome back to my YouTube channel. As promised, today I'm going to be talking about taxes. I know it's not a fun topic and nobody wants to do them. They're boring, they're annoying, and they're frustrating. But if you stay tuned for this video, I can help make that process much easier for you so you can get your taxes done much easier. So of course, the overall goal when doing your taxes is to try to minimize the amount that you owe. So the #1 golden rule when it comes to doing your taxes is always keep your receipts. Now the easiest way to do this is to just get a big box that you can store your receipts inside, and then every now and then, or at least I like to do it kind of occasionally, go through the receipts, circle the deductions that you're trying to deduct and the date, because those two are the most important, and just keep them in a box, and then at the end of the year you can go through all of your tax deductions. If you don't have a receipt of your purchases, it's harder to claim certain deductions. With online baking, it's a little easier because you have your statements online, but it's not necessarily going to show you an itemized count of what you purchased at that store. So for example, if you purchased a USB stick at Walmart and you're using it for your work purposes, but you don't have the physical receipt, you can use your bank statement on your credit or your debit card, but the IRS is just gonna look at that as it could be anything. Unlike if you were purchasing something at a professional store like Sephora or MAC, yes, you can write off your makeup, ladies, and I'll get into that. Those stores specifically carry makeup, professional makeup. So those are easier to deduct if you do not have your physical receipt on you, and you can just use your bank statement. So this year we're actually getting a tax break from the man Donald Trump. Love him or hate him, he's giving small businesses a break, such as yourself, cam girls, and adult entertainers as well. So let me read this little splurb for you. Pass-through owners who qualify can deduct up to 20% of their net business income from their income taxes, reducing their effective income tax rate by 20%. So that is huge for us. Technically, small businesses are kind of taxed twice, because if you work for someone, they actually pay a portion of the taxes and then you pay the second half. So with this tax break, you are getting the break of having to basically get taxed twice, is what they say. So in all technicality, we as cam girls and adult entertainers fall under the category of a small business. So you're gonna be able to write off the most if you itemize your deductions under Schedule C. And you don't have to write that you're a cam girl or an adult entertainer. You can just put entertainer, performer, you could put anything. So under the Schedule C, there's several categories that you can deduct your expenses out of. Before I go into items in particular to give you examples, let me go into what is considered deductible. So I'm going to read another splurb that I got from an article, and it says, to be deductible, a business expense must be both ordinary and necessary. An ordinary expense is one that is common and accepted in your field of business. A necessary expense is one that is helpful and appropriate for your business. So the key words are ordinary and necessary, and they put these words in quotation marks. They're very important keywords. Now before I go into all of the items that you can deduct, let me just preface by saying there are so many items that you can deduct that I could touch on, but I'm just not going to, because to do that I would have to do a lot of research, because not everything applies to me, and then there's just so many variables to so many of these deductions. It's just, it would be a really long video and it would take a lot of research on my part. So I will just explain some of the things, and I will encourage you to use what you learned from this video and do your own research, so that A, you can make sure that everything I'm saying is correct, because I could be wrong about something, and B, there could be variables to a certain deduction that you're trying to deduct, and it's best that you know in your particular situation how you can deduct some of these items. So some of the bigger deductions that you can write off are going to be your rent or office space, your utilities, your internet, and your phone bill. So let's start with your rent or your office space. This is described as being an area in your apartment or house that you are living in and paying rent for that is considered to be used for exclusive business purposes. So for example, if I'm using an entire closet to store supplies for my work that are exclusively used for my business, or equipment, anything like that, that entire space is going to be able to be tax deductible. However, if it's only simply a little more convenient to use that space for your business, then you can't write it off. For example, if I designate one room in my apartment to be used for filming and camming, then I can write off all of those square feet as long as it's only being used for my business. But if I choose to film or work out of my bathroom or my kitchen or a different room in my apartment for, let's say, an hour or a day, those square feet do not count because it's not exclusive, and it's just more convenient for me to be filming in those areas at that time. It isn't necessary. So there is a calculation that you have to do to figure out how much you can deduct off of your rent. You can look it up, and that same calculation is also going to apply to your utilities. Of course, if you're renting out an entire office or say a hotel for the day, then you can write off 100% those expenses because it is exclusively being used for your business. Now, internet. Now, originally I thought that you could only write off a percentage of your internet that you actually used for business, and the percentage that you used that wasn't for work, you couldn't write off. However, this is not the case. I watched a small podcast on taxes for small businesses, and I learned that internet in particular, because you need it. It is completely necessary to have internet and good internet to be a cam girl and run an online business. Therefore, you can actually write off 100% of your internet bill costs, which is awesome. And this includes installation costs, maintenance, any bill to do with your internet, you can write off 100%. Now, your phone bill. This one's a little different, I think, but I could be wrong. It either falls under the same case as the internet, or it falls into the category where you have to deduct only the percentage of the phone that you use. Because depending on your business, you might necessarily need to use your phone. For example, if you work on Night Flirt. I actually don't know if people on Night Flirt use their phones, but if you do, then that is completely necessary to run your business, and you could probably write off 100% of your phone. But if it isn't necessary, completely necessary, then you can only write off a percentage of that phone cost that you're actually using for your business. Now let's get into a fun one, and that's going to be travel deductions. So this one actually has a lot of variables, from international travel to domestic travel to how long you're traveling for. Now, meal costs when you're traveling international or domestic, you can actually write off 50%. So any food you buy at a grocery store, anytime you eat at a restaurant, including the tip, you can write off 50% off that total transaction. Now, if you're traveling locally, you can still write off travel expenses to some extent. So say you have to go to the grocery store, or Walmart, or Best Buy, anywhere, and you need to purchase something for work. Every mile that you travel with your personal vehicle, you can actually write off the tax miles. Now, every year, the amount that you can write off changes. So you can Google 2018 tax deductions for your car miles, and you can figure out how much you can write off per mile. And then at the end of the year, you can add up all of your miles, and you can make a deduction that way. Now, an easy way to do this, or at least how I do it, is I go through all of the receipts of the transactions that I've made, and I add up all of the miles using Google Maps. Yes, you're allowed to do this. And just total out your miles and then calculate how much you can deduct off of those miles. Now, if you're purchasing a vehicle and it's gonna be strictly a vehicle for work, you can actually tax deduct your business vehicle. Now, for larger purchases such as cars, computers, you generally have to break down the tax deduction over a series of years. So I don't think you can tax deduct your entire vehicle purchase in 1 year. Definitely do your own research on that, but just know that you can do that. So now let's get into the most intricate part of tax deductions, and that's all of your items that you're purchasing. There's so many that I can go through, and every single one is going to apply to specific people based on their personal use of items for work. It just branches out and branches out and branches out, and I'm not going to be able to cover every single item. It's just too complex. So I'm just going to try to explain to you the basics with examples so you kind of get it. And then if you have any questions on particular items, whether you can deduct them or not, the easiest thing I like to do is just Google. So let me go through some of the things that you can write off. So one of these things are toys, and when I'm talking about toys, I'm talking about adult toys. Any adult toy for what we do, because it is necessary and ordinary for our business, we can write off 100%. Now, the reason why tax deductions get a little finicky is because any other business that isn't in adult entertainment can't write off a penny of these items because it isn't necessary and ordinary for their business. But for our business, it is. If you get that and it makes sense to you, then doing your taxes and figuring out what is and is not tax deductible will be a lot easier. Now, another thing that you can write off on top of your toys is your lube, and I use a lot of lotion, so I write that off too for my boy girl videos. You could probably also write off oil. I use that sometimes, as long as it is completely exclusively used for your business and necessary and ordinary. So you can also write off costumes, and this one is probably the most complex category out of all of the items that you can write off. And let me explain a little bit why. It gets very intricate. So a part of something that adult entertainers and performers in general can write off is known as costuming. Now, under costuming, you're gonna have accessories for your performances, your videos, your live shows, anything of the sort. So some examples to that. Sometimes I will pull off a secretary look and people always want me to wear glasses. I don't actually wear glasses for medical reasons. So this would be considered costuming because it's a prop and it's an accessory and it goes with the look that I'm trying to go for my performance. Although even if you are wearing glasses and are purchasing glasses, you can write this off as a medical expense, and I will get into those later. A part of what needs to come through with costuming and tax deductions is the IRS generally wants it also to be something that's outrageous, like it looks outrageous. And that's because one of the things that they say in terms of writing off costumes is, can you wear it in public outside of your work? It's not if you would, it's if you could. So technically, yes, you could wear like these huge, crazy stiletto, sparkly heels out on the street, but if it's outrageous, it looks outrageous, even if you can't actually walk in those, you can actually write that off just because it's outrageous and it falls under that category that you can actually write it off. So that's gonna come with cosplays too. If you were an avid cosplayer and use a lot of cosplays in your live shows or your videos, generally these costumes will appear outrageous and you wouldn't necessarily wear something like that on the street. It just looks too crazy. So 100% of that, you can actually write that off. And of course, anything that's really skimpy lingerie, like bras, panties, one pieces, robes, micro skirts. I mean, these things, obviously, we can't wear them in public, so you can write these off 100%. An example of something that you wouldn't be able to write off is like a dress. Unless it's outrageous looking, then you can write it off. But if it's something you can wear to the club, something you can wear on the street, something you can wear in summer, like a summer dress, you can't write those off because you can wear them in public. Even if it's something that you personally would say, oh, I would never wear that out on the street, it's if you can, not if you would. Now, I know when it comes to shoes, dancers are actually allowed to write off their shoes. I'm assuming this is specifically dance shoes, ballet shoes, possibly certain high heels, depending on how outrageous they are. All of these get so intricate. There's so many variables. Really do your own research into the certain items that you are personally trying to deduct and for what reasons. Another item that you can tax deduct are home office decor and repairs. So your designated space in your apartment that you exclusively use for your business. If something breaks, if there's a hole in the wall, if there's chipped paint, if the carpet's damaged, anything of the sort, everything that you spend on repairing that or painting the space, if you are going to be filming in there or anything like that, that is all tax deductible as long as it is exclusively your business space. These items are exclusively used for my business. They're props, they're background decor, so those are tax deductible. Some more items that you can tax deduct are equipment. So lighting, cameras, anytime you purchase a webcam, anytime you purchase a camera, anytime you purchase lighting like studio lighting, or even if it's a lamp but it's specifically and exclusively used for your business to, you know, get the 3-point lighting working, then that is 100% a tax deduction. These items will also include hard drives, USBs, headsets and earbuds if you need to edit your content, anything that is exclusively used. Even if you purchase software that you are using, laptops and computers, mice, keyboards, these kind of things that you use to run your business, to work on your computer, they are necessary and they are ordinary, so you can write them off. Some more items that you can write off include shipping and packaging. So anytime you buy a bubble mailer, some tape, anything that you're using to ship someone an item plus the shipping cost itself, you can write that off. On top of that, if you are using notebooks and pens to organize your work or use them in any way for your business, you can write off these notebooks and pens. I do it all the time. It helps me make to-do lists and really organize my time better. So when I buy notebooks and pens for my business, then I can write these off too. Sometimes I get a little artsy for customers and I make signs for them. This includes pencils, erasers, pencil crayons, markers. Sometimes I do body writing, and I also use erasable markers. All of these items are office supplies too, and I can write them off. Ordinary and necessary, remember that. Another thing that you can write off is cost for your laundry, but it has to be your work items only. So all of those clothing items that you use exclusively for your business and cannot be worn outside of work, whenever you need to do the laundry for those items, you can tax deduct that. So some of the more fun ones you can deduct, and they can get pretty pricey, include your hair, makeup, and even boob jobs. So if you spend $6,000 plus whatever on getting your tits enhanced, the IRS now recognizes that this is a necessary and ordinary expense to our business, because for example, if a stripper does this, their tips will be bigger, so you can write these off as an adult entertainer. Makeup is tax deductible. Again, if someone who wasn't a performer or a similar business was trying to write off makeup, it would be a big no. But we are adult entertainers and we are cam girls and we perform and we entertain and we have to look a certain way. And there is another word that I'm gonna be getting into really soon called branding. If you haven't heard of it already, I will be going into a little bit of detail about that. But specifically for makeup, even if you are a performer or an adult entertainer, you are restricted to professional makeup only. So if you purchase makeup from Sephora, MAC, any of those professional makeup stores, you can write off all of those makeup expenses as long as you're exclusively using them for your business. One thing that you can't deduct are razor blades. And I find this really annoying because we exclusively do need to excessively shave ourselves. I mean, it depends. There are hairy fetishes out there. But in general, you want to keep yourself looking fresh. And it does not make sense to me that you wouldn't be able to write off razor blades, at least to some extent, but the IRS does not let you write these off because it is considered personal hygiene. Some other things that you're not necessarily going to be able to write off include getting your hair done and your nails. And when I say this, I'm not talking about everything per se. It depends. If you're getting your hair styled for one photo shoot, for one show, for one performance, a blowout, a styling, something of that sort, then you can write that off because it is a look for one of your performances or photo shoots or whatnot. But say you got a trim or your nails done, you are not allowed to write these tax deductions off because technically you are taking your look with you. Now, branding is very, very important as an online performer, when you have an online persona or just your brand in general. So what is a brand? I kind of touched on this a little bit when I was talking about niches back in one of my older videos, but a niche is kind of like the same thing as a brand. So for me, I am the girl next door, and that's my brand, that's my niche, that's the category that I cater to, that's how I sell myself. So anytime I do something to my look that is going to strengthen my branding, that's going to be a cost, an expense, you are paying for yourself to fit into your brand more, if that makes sense. The way I explain things is terrible. Bear with me. So I'll give you an example. I was reading an article on how this one lady dyed her hair a crazy color. I think it was like purple or blue or pink or something like that. And she was able to write off this cost because it fit into her brand, and she actually kept the color and would renew it all the time, and that was her brand. So every time she got her hair colored, she was able to write off that as a tax deduction. So if you're dyeing your hair for your brand or to increase your earnings, then that would be a tax deduction as long as it's ordinary to your business. So hopefully all of those things helps you out when you're identifying what items you can and cannot tax write off. I know there's so many and there's so many variables and it's so intricate, and it just really depends on you and what you do particularly in your business. I mean, for me, I film videos, I cam, some adult entertainers are only strippers or only cam girls. There's variations, there's so many variables. I can't cover everything. And on top of all of these variables of every single item that you can potentially tax write off, there are more things that you can add to decrease the amount that you will owe the government at the end of every tax year. And I will go into some of these with you. Again, there's a lot. I'm not going through them all. You're gonna have to do your own research. So some of these extra tax deduction items include tax, donations, medical, and hobbies. So let's start with tax. Every time you purchase an item, for the most part, there's tax included onto it. Depending on what state or country you live in, there's going to be different amounts of tax that you have to pay on your purchases. At the end of the year, if you keep your receipts, you can total all of the tax that you've paid and you can deduct that at the end of your year, and it can decrease how much you're actually going to owe the government based on your AGI or adjusted gross income. Donations can be a big one, but you have to be careful with this. There are limits and boundaries for some of these deductions, so you have to be careful. For example, filing separately, married, jointly, these brackets are going to vary. I know this year in particular, the amount of donations that you have to be donating for it to even count is a lot more than it used to be. So if you donated a lot this year, you can write it off. If you've only donated so much, then you probably can't even tax deduct even a penny off of it. So it really depends, and you really have to go into every year's rules regarding tax deductions and the specifics of what you're trying to deduct. But yes, donations is one of these items, and you can decrease how much you're gonna owe the government by donating items. So medical is going to be one of those things that there's different brackets, especially for filing separately or married. You have to have spent a certain amount on medical for it to even count as a deduction. Just make sure to keep your receipts, and by the end of the year, you'll be able to document what you can and cannot write off. Now, just like itemization, medical is going to have those little intricacies that you can and cannot write certain items off. You can write off therapy, you can write off AA classes, because the government actually recognizes that drinking is quite a problem, and if you're trying to quit, you can write off all of your AA classes. Any hospital visit, any medication that's prescription. I know there was an article that some guy actually tried to write off alcohol as a medical tax deduction. No, you can't write off alcohol as a medical tax deduction, sorry. And the last item that I'm going to cover is hobbies. Now this one's gonna vary for people as well, but for example, if you are collecting cards that can be resold in the future for a lot more than they are worth now, that is considered a hobby, and if you purchase a pack of cards for that collection, you can write off the cost, and that's called hobbying. There are a lot of hobbies out there, and there are a lot of rules depending on what your particular hobby is and how your deductions will flow from there. So make sure you do your own research and you'll be able to figure out what works for you. So that was a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it highly informative. If this is your first time filing taxes as a cam girl or an adult entertainer, this will probably help you more so than those that are more experienced. But even if you have filed taxes in the past, you may have missed something, and this might actually have helped you. And if that's the case, I'm really glad. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe with the notifications turned on down below if you enjoyed this video and this type of content. And I'll be filming more videos every Friday. See you guys next week.